just wanted to try this again. So, I am here to talk about the pathless path. This idea of the pathless path, which is a phrase that a teacher, maybe a couple of teachers of mine, gave me back when I was in my 20s. And it is the idea that there are, okay, so it was less common then for people to go off-roading in their life. And by less common, most of the people that I knew that I was close with were definitely off-roaders for life. They had a very unconventional, creative, responsive way of living their lives. They wanted their own life. They wanted to be the masters of their own life. And that could be a very difficult and challenging experience, especially when surrounded by a world that says that a well-lived life, a quality life, a valid life looks like fill in the blank from whatever culture you come from. I think it's probably universal to say that, you know, whatever your schooling, apprenticeship, training is, get good grades in that, get a good job, be good to people, like be nice to people. That I'll take out be good. That's different from be nice. Like carry yourself in a socially acceptable way that may not be the way that you actually would carry yourself if you felt free or courageous. Getting married, having children, having a house, retiring, traveling the world. Like, I'm super simplifying it, but I think you understand what I'm saying. Like, we were all raised to believe that there's a correct way to live, there's a correct way to be, and there have always been people who have gone off-roading, I call it off-roading, who, for whatever reason, didn't, couldn't, wouldn't live a standardized, scripted life. And the sun's coming up here. I'll just see if I can turn around a bit. So back when I was just getting started in my adult life, the idea of making my own choices, doing weird things, not going to university, that was the choice of some people. I did start there. Anyway, whatever it was that was like different, you know, I heard that a lot. Oh, you're different. And the good thing for me was eventually, and not too long into my adult initiations, I found people who were different too. They were different from my different, but they were also doing different. So I had a lot of good examples of people being unconventional, to use that word. However, there was still a bubble. Like, we were still a bubble of people living this way, and there was still a larger world around us that had a very standardized way of approaching things. You know, this is to be expected, do what's expected, etc., etc. And now we are all, you know, I think of those blue tubes at the water parks, those really terrifying blue tubes that are way too hot in the summer. Like, I've only done it once, and once was enough, but it's like we have all lined up for that slide and there is no turning back, and someone has like pushed some of us down that slide. Now, I voluntarily threw myself down that slide, but some of us are like, we get to the edge and we're looking down and we're like, oh hell no, I'm not doing that bullshit, and somebody behind us has pushed us. Like, that is what a lot of us are experiencing. We've either volunteered to do this, or we have been pushed off of this particular cliff or slide, or however this experience is going for you. So now we're all facing this idea of living on the pathless path. So whatever had been working for you, whatever structures you thought you had in place for yourself, whatever scripts you had been following, you're probably finding that they're not working anymore. And as we continue down into this next decade, we're more and more of what those of us who are used to seeing the world in a certain way, got used to seeing, that stuff's going to be gone. A lot of emphasis gets put on the younger generations, always. And this is not what I came on here to talk about, but it's coming in right now. So I just want to follow this thread of thought until it dissolves itself. Every time a new generation comes on, I think the previous generations before talk about that generation, the new generation, being our hope, and that we have to save the world for that generation, and that generation, the newer generation, is the one that's going to figure it out. And that has always bothered me. Those statements have always bothered me. The one about preserving our planet, our home, for the upcoming generations bothers me less than the others, than the ones that say that the younger generations are our hope and our future, and that the younger generations are, so amazing and they've got everything figured out. Because I have felt like it took a lot of the responsibility off of those of us, because I'm now one of those of us who have been here for a while. So it takes responsibility off of the prior generations. It also verbally shuts down the creative capacity of generations of people who have been struggling through life and have figured some things out. Have figured out, if nothing else, some resilience and perseverance. And those are not things to be discarded. The brand new generations, yeah, creativity, they are tapped in ways that we weren't. They have access to information that we didn't have, etc., etc., etc. And some of that is probably cosmic conditioning when they came through the stars and landed on the planet, however that works. But some of that is because of the generations before them and before me and before you, who were doing some kind of work, who were laying down tracks for them. So we are all here on this planet contributing and collaborating until we're not. So if you are someone who has been putting all of the juice on the newest generations, whatever their names are now, please pull some of that attention and energy back to yourself and recognize yourself as a completely capable, creative being who is still functioning in this life and able and needed in their contributions. I think that's all I'd like to say about that for now. So getting back to this idea of the pathless path, our structures are coming down. This has been prophesized in all sorts of spiritual traditions. It's part of the book of Revelation, as I read it and as it has been read by others. The ways that we have functioned and the things that we have been used to functioning in a certain way, like our economy, education, our working system, all of these structures that we've gotten used to showing, like being a certain way, for like the things we said will always be the way they are, all of that is changing and nobody knows what it's changing into. And so we are entering into a time where more of us are going to find that tapping into our creativity and our intuition is going to be necessary in order to stay somewhat sane as we continue evolving through these cycles, or moving through these cycles. If you've decided you're not signing up for the evolutionary parts, good luck with that. So there are a lot of places you can go to learn how to tune into your intuition, how to tap into your intuition, which is another way of saying like how to directly call up your intuitive capacities and in your intuitive intelligence. I'm going to slow down my speaking. Lots of people out there teaching these things, lots of books, lots of things on the internet you can go find. I'm just suggesting that if you're not friends, like best friends with your intuition, now is the time to start developing it, because we're going to need it. the information and the changes are going to keep coming at us, and it's going to intensify and accelerate. And we have to have solid internal cores, individual solid internal cores, in order to navigate with any degree of success, and you're going to be the determiner of that success. I'm sorry, I'm all sorts of twitchy because the bugs are starting to come out, and if you guys could see the constellation of scars on my legs from being eaten down here, it's pretty brutal. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to move soon. But I wanted to come on and say more and more people are going to find that your life doesn't have a script anymore. It's like an oh shit moment. What do I do? What am I doing? Who am I? And it's gonna feel a lot of different ways to a lot of different people. What I'd like to say is, if you find yourself in that position now or down the road, it is a thing in humanity. It is a thing in the human story, the human myth, and the human psyche to walk the pathless path, to walk a life, to build a life, to create a life that does not have instructions, where we cannot turn to our neighbor and say, how do I do my life? What's proper for me? We have to go inward and figure that out for ourselves, and we're going to make a lot of fucking mistakes doing it. What brought this conversation on is that I was, in the past 72 hours, I've had a very active, busy, moving life, and just moving some things and just all of my things into storage. And I realized that I have moved 7 times in the past 2.5 years, and it has been rough. It has been rough. And it has also been right on time. It's had its purpose, although I don't understand all the reasons why in the various situations. And all of that movement, all of this external movement has actually been building an internal stillness in me. And I can talk about that more later at another time. So we're all experiencing tremendous change externally and internally, and whatever change you're going through is right on time for you. You may need people around you who speak. If you're starting to ask new questions about your life, if you're starting to feel like the vocabulary that you have for talking about life isn't covering it for you, you might going to need to expand your vocabulary, but you might also need to meet new people. You might need to bring new people into your life who are also living in brave ways, is what's coming to me. Although I think the majority of us are going to have to start living in brave ways if we have not already been committed to that or thrown into that, whatever the case may be for you. So intuition is going to become very, very, very a very important, necessary skill in the now and in the coming years. And I'm encouraging you, as this demand for pathless pathwalkers increases, because the world is not going to function the way that we've been trained to function in it. I would say certainly the generation behind me, maybe those, of course, the tiny babies coming in, they're going to have a new world to operate in, and children and teenagers, but they're still they're still being raised by parents who are still operating in a world that has a particular operating system that is now coming undone. So the logical mind is very important. The logical mind functions well in service to the heart and to intuition. So our logical minds are not going to be able to figure everything out anymore. That part of us is really good at strategizing, but we have to understand what it is, or at least know what it is we're strategizing for. And that comes from asking questions about how you want to live your life, what your values are, what is necessary for you going forward, which may not be the same things that were necessary for you 4 years ago or 3 years ago or 2 years ago or even 6 months ago. And that is where intuition and self-knowledge, self-awareness, co-creation, coming inward and getting real familiar with who you are, independent of all the people around you. We are going to have to be working more collaboratively, but we only do that when we understand who we are and how we function. And that takes some attention, and it takes a lot of self understanding and self knowledge, and having an intuitive language. Having your intuition as your best buddy, it's going to be a skill that people need. And I think I'm repeating that so much in this live because for the longest time, intuition was something that was set aside, looked at as though it's something only certain people have. Everybody has intuitive capacity, and our intuition speaks to us in different ways. And now is the time that if you have not already gotten real buddy with your intuitive vocabulary, your intuitive system, you need to start figuring that out. That's what I wanted to come say. All right. Have a good Wednesday. Wednesday is the day of communication. It's Mercury's day. So you can write some notes to yourself. Start journaling, whether it's verbal journals or written journals, video journals, audio journals. Start having conversations with yourself. Who are you? What's going on in you right now? What do you want? What are you experiencing in life?